All right. So Daniel, Keith, and I went to a presentation by Sharon in Fresno 2 weeks ago. He covered 3 different modules over 3 hours. And I would summarize the entire 3 hours as don't be an average buyer's agent. Like that's the words that I got from it, that I left. And I was like, I had the 3-hour car ride home. So I got to like replay a lot of things in my head. And there's a few mantras that I've been playing in my head since going there. One of them I'll mention, another one I'll mention today, but don't be an average buyer's agent is something that I really wanted to like pass on to you guys today. And you guys will kind of understand why. So the reason why this is becoming such an issue is because we're facing 2 major problems in the industry right now, and they're really compounded on another. Like you could call these one problem. There's been several lawsuits that have happened now, and basically they're saying is that commissions are supposed to be negotiable, and listing agents were making it so they weren't. They were saying like, hey, this is fixed pricing. You have to pay a buyer's agent. You don't have a choice. And ultimately, they've been winning those lawsuits. And so problem number 1 that we're seeing is listing agents are actually already marketing this in the Bay Area. If you guys are in the Bay Area and you're familiar with the DeLeon team, they're not a huge team. They don't have a ton of agents, but they do a lot of business. They do a lot of those high price homes in like Atherton area. They sell like the $10 to $20 million homes in that neighborhood. They are already marketing 3.5 commission, no buyer's agent commission required. So 3.5 total. So they're publishing them on the MLS with no buyer's agent commission being offered. And so what they're telling their sellers is like, hey, in this price range, we already know the whole database of people that are your potential buyers. You don't need to pay a buyer's agent. You can just pay us the full 3.5% and we'll figure everything else out from there. And so Inman has already run an article on them. If any of you guys, does anybody here read Inman? Inman's already ran an article on it, publishing this exact thing that I'm showing right here. I had heard about it maybe like a couple days before the Inman article, just because I had a friend who, like a friend of a friend, is on the DeLeon team basically, and he's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing what DeLeon's doing." So I looked it up. So there's going to be copycats of this. They are the first. They won't be the last. There's going to be more people doing this, and what I'm talking about here today is what we need to do to adapt to this. And then problem number 2 is the decoupling of commissions. There's a little bit of misunderstanding on what's going on. And so this paragraph, I think, really helps understand what's happening. They're not saying that they're never going to pay buyers commissions anymore. They're just going to change the way in which buyer commissions are handled. They're going to make it so that buyers can actually start to negotiate their commissions. So the DOJ has called for what's called a decoupling of commissions. They no longer want it to be a 5% commission with 2.5 going and 2.5 going. So they're going to change it into the seller giving a credit, which the buyer can use for commissions. So the buyers have the ability to negotiate the commissions directly with their agent. And they can also use those credits for things like buying down their mortgage rate or anything like that. And so the reason why they have to do it this way is because buyer commissions cannot become financeable. And so naturally, somebody who's shopping for like a $300,000, $400,000 home, or someone who has an FHA loan, they can't afford to pay a buyer's agent, right? Like if you already only have $8,000 down as a down payment, if you all of a sudden have to pay your buyer's agent, you no longer can afford that, and banks aren't going to start financing it. So the DOJ is trying to be very creative about how they create this. There's been a lot of misinformation on social media, though. Like people are saying, hey, buyer's agents are no longer getting paid, and they're saying that it's already been passed. That's all false information. That's all false information. It's just a proposal at this point. And it's still going to take a lot for it to happen. What we should be aware of, though, is something is going to change. But that's okay, right? Change doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, in my experience, change can be a good thing. The real estate industry as a whole might reduce the amount of commissions paid out, but those teams and agents that adapt are going to thrive. And those people who don't will probably go out of business. So all you need to do is be on the right side of this coin flip. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how to be on the right side. And if we start preparing today and start doing these things today, then no matter what that change is, we are going to be ready for it. They understand that? Cool. Okay. If you guys have any more questions on it, let me know. It's important for us to really understand what's happening so we can speak intelligently to it with our clients. I've had a couple of agents who have forwarded me screenshots of questions their clients have asked and seen what they thought of it. And so I just think it's important. This paragraph right here, to me, really summarizes what's truly happening. So I mentioned before that all we need to do is adapt. So how do we guarantee that we're going to adapt? What are some things that from you guys that you think we can do to adapt to these changes?
I do have a question. I'm a little bit late on the uptake there, but before this, like with, in the last 10 years, there have been brokers who will list for 1%. So how is this, how are these people who are listing for 3.5 different than those, would you say?
Well, it's that they're not offering any buyer's agent commission. So like on the MLS, if you go on their listings on the MLS, it says like they're offering a $1 commission because the MLS requires you to put a value in there. And so you're correct, Chris, the listing side, like there's even a company called HomeCoin. HomeCoin will list your house for, I think, for like $185, something like that. Like the discount listing agents have been around for a long time. It's always the cooperating agent part that's been the scrutiny. And like something that I tell sellers when I meet with them is like, hey, I recommend offering a 2.5% to the buyer side because we want to incentivize those buyers agents to bring their clients here, right? And so that's the part that I think is going to change, Chris, is more the what's being offered to the cooperating broker.
Or do you suspect that when a buyer's agent submits an offer, they'll have a separate one-page addendum that'll say, you're only offering 1.5% in the MLS. I'm asking for 2% as a result of my buyer's offer, who is also, mind you, 15,000 over asking. So I think the seller can afford it.
I think that'll absolutely be part of the Jish. Yeah, I think that'll absolutely be part of it. And I think that's going to be just part of the contract now. It's like basically there's going to be a fixed amount the seller's offering, and the buyer then can choose how much of that actually goes to the agent.
Whoa. So now if the buyer gets to say, hey, I don't want my agent to make more than 1%, why the hell are we going to work with that buyer?
Why are we going to work with that buyer? Exactly. Right. Exactly. And then it's going to be important to negotiate that ahead of time, right? You can't get to the closing table to negotiate it. You need to have that agreement before you start showing them houses, right? So how are we going to adapt? I kind of just gave away one right there. Pre-negotiate our rate right before we start showing them houses, or early on in the process, at least. It doesn't have to be before we start showing them, but definitely before we start writing offers. What else, Daniel?
Definitely have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because now that rep agreement doesn't guarantee you a commission anymore.
Yeah. Well, the rep agreement will be guaranteeing that commission because that'll be you.
They're giving zero though.
That'll be you, right? But it'll be built in as a credit though, because they're not going to be able to finance commissions. But I see what you mean, like on the dealing on deal. Yeah, exactly. So the buyer, that means it has to come out of the buyer's pocket though. In that scenario, that's what the buyer rep agreement says.
So with this coming into play already in the Bay Area, do you think the transition to sellers trying to battle or fight having to pay the buyer's commission, do you think that could I don't know if offset is the right word, but kind of just make this do you think it might be a difficult transition between sellers trying to pay that buyer's commission or not trying to pay that buyer's commission, and then the buyers not being able to afford that? Like their pool of buyers is going to get so much smaller.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's going to be friction at first. The reason why you're seeing this happen with an ultra luxury team first is because that's not a problem, right? Like the buyers can afford to pay their buyer's agent because the De Leon team is listing $10 million homes. Okay. But Miguel, what you just said is the exact problem with all of this is people who are buying with an FHA loan can't also afford to compensate their agent. And then these are people who are also less experienced in buying real estate because by the very nature of FHA means they've never bought a home before. So how are they supposed to know how to navigate a home purchase? So what you just stated is going to be the friction point and why buyer's agents won't go away. It's just going to be a change in the way that they're compensated is what's going to happen.
I guess I have another adaptation. We make a rush right now to only do listings and be the seller agent, and we need to corner the market now.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like list to last guys is going to become more true than ever because you, as the listing agent, you're going to hold all the power. I did a listing lead generation presentation yesterday for the boot camp. And, so like that's kind of some of those facts are replaying in my head. What I can tell you is the number one way to get listings is to represent a buyer in buying their house and retain them as your client. And as we're building our business initially, we know like some people on the call today haven't sold a house yet, haven't represented a buyer yet. So, I'm not saying you won't represent a listing, but most people represent a few buyers before they get their first listing. Not everybody, but most. And so representing buyers is a great way to begin and build up that book of business and get that confidence and the know-how, and then to transition into listings as a gradual thing. So these are my 3 ways that I'm really urging you guys to adapt, and the way that as a company that we're going to adapt. And so number 1 is to always increase our buyer appointment rate. And you guys are like, hey, no duh, like that's all, we're already trying to do that, but it's becoming more important than ever because we need to make sure the quality of our buyers is there, right? So we have to lead generate more in order to ensure that our quality is there, in order to retain and sell more business, because we're going to be throwing some buyers away now in the future, probably. Number 2 is provide more value as a buyer's agent. And that's really where I want to focus today, because I think that's the most important way. And then number 3 is through buyer representation agreements. And that goes back to hey, we need to be pre-negotiating our commissions with our buyers. So that way, when we get to the signing table, it doesn't become oh, hey, well, I actually only wanted to give you 1%. We need to have that in writing ahead of time. And the way that we're going to have that established is by providing more value. And then communicating our value, right? Because that's the other side of the coin, is communicating that value. So quickly on the more meta appointments is Fortune is in the follow-up. Somebody posted this on my Facebook the other day, and it's actually a page. When I used to work at ADP doing payroll sales, I had this page up in my little cubicle to remind me of this. And so I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but only 10% of salespeople, you can read through them all, but I'll just point out the 2 most important ones. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts on a prospective client. And if you pair that with the main bullet point down here, is 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So that means 90% of salespeople are not making enough follow-ups on their leads in order to actually make a conversion. So follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. Fortune is in the follow-up. We made a joke today about being Kevin of Modesto. Kevin's best skill, follow-up, by far. He puts on Sierra and he follows up religiously until they tell him to F off or just stop returning calls. But he'll still call them when they're not returning his calls, because it's on a Sierra, and he'll just, what does it hurt? It takes all 15 seconds to leave somebody a voicemail. So follow up. All right. So then now this is from Sharon. I know this is something Daniel really liked from it. And when I was going around asking people what they wanted some of, I heard this. So this is Sharon's 5-star prospect evaluation system. And he has a really great podcast on it, actually. So if you guys, I don't know if you guys have ever heard Sharon's podcast, it's really freaking good. So if you haven't, I would definitely recommend looking it up. It's called Business Mastery with Sharon. He does a few different podcasts, mastermind type things. Like, he's really well known for the 5 a.m. club, which he started a long time ago. He does like a call for 10, 15 minutes at 5 a.m. every single day with people who will come on it. So this is the 5-star prospect. So number 1 star is somebody who's willing to engage in dialogue. So somebody who will actually answer your calls, right? Number 2 star is friendly and collaborative. So like, they'll engage in like more of a conversation, and they'll be happy to talk to you. Number 3 is they know what they want. So this is where we start to get like intense, right? They know what they want. Now, what's a good way to find out what somebody wants?
A buyer consultation.
Buyer consultation, for sure that is. But usually if somebody's just friendly, collaborate with us, they might not be ready for a buyer consultation. So if you can get them to a buyer consultation at that point, Miguel, heck yeah, that definitely is. But at this point, I would say the best way to know what they want is to ask great questions, right? Ask great questions. And so Sharon at the presentation gave us a good framework for asking good questions, and he introduced what's called sorting questions. So what a sorting question is asking somebody, do you want this or do you want that, in order to put them in 2 categories. Because a lot of times, especially if somebody's new to you, like you don't have that relationship capital, if you're asking them, tell me more, or open-ended questions, they are not really ready to talk to you yet, right? Like, they're not really ready to open up and pour out their heart. And like, that's kind of why we say a lot of times buyers are liars. And it's because they don't trust you yet. Well, it's because we're asking them deeper questions for a relationship that isn't ready for it. And so what he introduced was, instead of asking somebody who you're just newly meeting, instead of asking them open-ended questions, instead ask them sorting questions. So Cassie, are you choosing your home location based on your commute to work, or do your kids need to be in a certain school district? So it's a sorting question, right? And they say, oh, I'm looking based on school districts. So now we know they're looking for good school districts. And then he also provided information of like, I thought this one was interesting too. So he said there's three main reasons people look for location is commute to work, distance to their work, school district, and recreation reasons. Like he said, like 98% of people are all going to be in those three buckets. And so you can kind of ask the sorting questions on those three things. And so if you're in an area that has a lot of like second homes, vacation homes, they might want to be on that recreation side, right? So if you're in like Monterey Carmel, like some of you might be like, hey, do you want to be closer to the ocean, or are you looking to be in the Carmel Valley closer to wine country? Know when they want it is so important. And so again, you can have this as a sorting question. Is this something that you're looking to be moved into in the next 2 months, or are you thinking this is more of an end of the year type of thing? If somebody doesn't trust you, that they have a lot easier time answering that, right? Because it doesn't require a lot of thought. They're like, am I this or am I that? And so once you know when they want it, then they're a 4-star. And then once you know that they want you to help them, they become a 5-star. And I told you guys there's a few mantras from the presentation that I keep replaying in my head. And some of you have already heard me say this several times. Like, at least I know you've heard me say this a few times already, is conversion is in the conversation. The conversion is in the conversation. So you are not going to convert people by dumping a bunch of information to them and them reading it. And then they're not going to come back and be like, hey, Nia's so great. She just sent me this email with a ton of information. I totally want to work with her. No, they're going to work with Nia because Nia asked really great questions and asked follow-up questions and got to know them, right? So conversion is in the conversation. And so I know some of you are interested in starting to utilize this 5-star system as a way to like dive down deeper and understand prospects. So we created a tag system on Sierra in order to do that. So there's 2 different ways to manage it. One is with the little asterisk sign. So like the star looking guy, the asterisk, you can use a 1 asterisk, 2 asterisks, 3, 4, and 5. So that's in there. And there's also written out 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. And so like Sharon said, he's like, I would do if I was an agent today, I would do 3 things. Number 1 is I would take somebody out from my sphere out for coffee every single day. Number 2 is I would send a weekly deal of the week newsletter to my whole database. And number 3 is I would have everybody categorized as a 1, 2-star, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. And I would just go into every day I would go into my 4 stars and make my goal to move as many people as I could into 5 stars. And then I would go to my 3 stars and try to move them into 4 stars. Because you only want to move people 1 level up. You don't want to focus on going from 1 to 5, because then you're creating these unsurmountable tasks for you to do, right? That's really tough to get somebody from 1 to 5. Get on the phone with them and take them from being just open to dialogue to friendly. So that means just like building rapport, right? And then 2 to 3 is them going from friendly to understanding what they want. So that's when you can start asking more of those real estate type questions. So he said if he was a real estate agent today, he'd do those 3 things only. All right. And then so Daniel asked me a good question at the seminar as well. And he said, I want to figure out how to start sorting things a little better and getting in my database. So hopefully this screenshot makes sense to you guys. It's split in the middle by the black bar. So the left-hand side is, so what you do to find people is you click on advanced search and then select criteria. And that select criteria then creates a drop-down menu, and then it flips to the right screen. And there's different ways to sort your leads. But if you're going to be using the 5-star system, you want to sort them by tag, because you want to see who has a 4-star tag in your database, right? So if you click on tag, then you can put in 4-star, and then you'll see all your 4-star prospects on the list there on the screen. There's other filters you can set up on the system as well, on other ways of sorting. Like you can look at phone call outcome, date registered, phone call phone status. You can see things up here like birthday, what city they're in, all these different things. So there's a long list of things you can sort by. I use tag by far the most. And that's the way a lot of our smart filters are created, is they're all tag based. So he asked I wish I would have actually framed this the way he did. So he asked everybody at the seminar, what % of agents do you think ask for the appointment? And the answer ended up being 8%. Only 8% of agents actually ask for appointments. And guys, like I am so guilty of it as well. On this last boot camp, I got like a really great caller on the phone, an old lead, and she was like giving information, totally open to conversation, telling me what she wanted. And for some reason, I didn't ask for the appointment at the end. I said, great, well, I'll send you a list of properties for you to review. And then once you get a review them, let's plan on talking on Friday to see what you thought of those properties I sent you. Like I fell into that 92%. Because why? Because I was like shocked I got somebody on the phone willing to talk to me, right? And I hadn't practiced that script of how am I going to ask for that appointment. And so this is like, if you guys take anything from today, this could be just the only one thing you take from it right here is get the ask for the appointment down, talk track down so well that you can say it in your sleep. And so this is for Sharon's talk track on how to ask for the appointment. And Tom Ferry is actually big on asking on the same one too, if you guys follow Tom Ferry at all. Has anyone taken the time to sit down and go over the 3 most important things to be successful in purchasing a home in San Jose in today's market? So always say their city because it's like a dog whistle. Their ears will perk up. They're like, oh, you're talking directly to me, right? So say that over and over and over again to yourself until you can say it in your sleep. And it's just so natural to say. Has anyone taken the time to sit down and go over the most important things to do to be successful in purchasing a home in Roseville in today's market? It's like, whoa, no, actually nobody hasn't, right? Most agents don't do this. We know 92% of agents don't. So chances are they haven't done that. And that's how you can get to your buyer consult. His other way to frame it was the why don't we blank so that. And so in an example of that is, why don't we meet later this week over a quick cup of coffee? And before you even finish your coffee, I can explain to you what it takes to be successful in purchasing a home in today's market. So get that down super, super well. You guys should be saying this at the end of every Go show, every Zillow Go show. Say this at the end. See this on every phone call that you make. All these different things. This is such a soft way to ask for people, and it's just giving value. It's providing education to them, right? Who would be offended by this question? And Lonnie, we could go Chris Voss on this too, right? We could be like, would you be offended if we sat down and talked about the 3 most important things to be successful in purchasing a home in Roseville today? Would you be offended?
I was thinking, would you be opposed to meeting later this week over a quick cup of coffee so I could review what it takes to be successful in purchasing a home in this market? Would you be opposed to that?
Beautiful. No way. No, I wouldn't be opposed to that. So you guys have ever heard of Chris Voss? He's an amazing negotiator. He has a book, Never Split the Difference. And that's one of his big ones is, would you be opposed to? Let's get more buyer consults going because it is going to make it so that we're wasting less time with buyers and we're converting more of them.
Kyle, I have a question.
Yes.
So can buyers already do this to us? Remember how that one time that one buyer tried taking all my commission? Can he technically do that? Oh, well, I only want you to get 1% now.
They can. But not if you have a buyer rep agreement ahead of time. Okay. Yeah. So technically commissions are still negotiable. People can ask for credits, but you can tell them no.
Yeah.
Melissa gets asked all the time and she never gives it up. No. And even on her last one, I was like, would you just give them? I was like, I'm tired of hearing about this one. She's like, I'm not giving a penny. This has been the hardest penny.
How does do you know how she objects that? How does she negotiate that she's not going to get part of her commission as credit?
She says that I'm not a discount agent. I've worked extremely hard on this transaction and taking time away from my family and provided you a ton of value. And if you're unhappy with the value that I've given you, then that's one conversation, but I'm not going to give you part of my commission just for the sake of it.
Gotcha. It's
a separate conversation if you're unhappy with my services. That's a different conversation, right? Are you unhappy with my services or are you just trying to get in my pocketbook? Well, I shouldn't say it that way, but that's like a mentality. That's her mentality.
Yeah, but that's, she gets that point across,
Yeah, exactly. That's her point that she's communicating is let me know if there's something I've done wrong to offend you, let me know. But if not, then I've provided you a tremendous amount of value. This was another one I got from Facebook from my buddy Colton. And he runs a Zillow Flex team that does really well. And he's big on always increasing the MET rate. So they do Zillow, right? So a lot of times with Zillow, who's had a Zillow appointment, tell them they're going to be there at 12 o'clock and no show them. So we want to increase our MET rate. And so these are his 5 biggest tips to increasing the MET rate is always asking them what time works best to take a look and always trying to get that appointment in 24 hours. Guys, Please do not answer a Zillow call if you're out of town and cannot show somebody a property within 24 hours. Please do not do it. I'm not going to turn you off of leads for it. I'm not going to make this like a rule or anything like that, but make this a rule for yourself, right? You're on vacation or you're out of town. You're not able to provide that value. Don't answer the call because number one, somebody else on the team might actually be able to give that value and might be able to get conversion out of it. So you're taking that opportunity away from somebody else. And number two is these Zillow calls are percentage market based. So if we skip a call, all that happens is we just get the next one. So if you're not able to show somebody a house within 24 hours, please do not take that call. Number two is to dangle a carrot concluding the call. And so this is this is something that we're going to build a lot of value on today is, hey, JS, just so you know, I'm very active in this area. And when we meet on Tuesday, I'm going to have some off markets to discuss with the deployment as well. So we're already putting it in their mind, like, hey, I'm very valuable as a buyer's agent and you want to work with me. And guys, we all have off markets on just the MLS members only. And it's called different things in different MLSs, but members only, coming soons. These are the common terminologies. We also have people who we know might take an offer on their house and things like that. We all can come up with off markets. And today I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can do that too. Yeah, Jayesh?
I don't think our prospector has that.
Really?
Yeah.
CRMLS?
Yeah. No, not CRMLS, the Sacramento Prospector Plus.
MetroList?
MetroList, yeah.
MetroList doesn't have coming soon?
I don't think so. I don't.
Well, I got some other ways for you guys to get off markets pretty easily too. So if you don't have it, that's okay. We'll get there. All right. Number three is always send a calendar invite. Always, always, always. That makes it so they'll get notifications. And even if you guys use Calendly, Calendly is great because Calendly will then also send text reminders for you. And it increases showing rates by 12%. That's like a national stat there. Always have pre-appointment collateral. So this is about showing your value, have comps, have information about the home, and then always have those off markets. And then use a reminder system. So always call or text them 4 hours before the appointment and 1 hour before saying, hey, I'm going to go stop and grab us a coffee. What's your favorite drink? Has anybody used the Starbucks trick yet?
I did one. This is different, but I did one once where I got them something from a local bakery that was really well known in the neighborhood. And they were like, oh, actually, we got married in this neighborhood. And this is the baker we used for our wedding. So we're really glad you brought this for us.
They really liked you, didn't they?
Yeah.
The coffee strategy has worked for me. I tried it on my very first ever buyer consult, and we still talk today. She hasn't even looking to buy it. She put her search on hold, but we still talk and plan, coffee dates and whatnot. Like, it works.
That's amazing. Two great examples. That's two great examples. Guys, the law of reciprocity is one of the most fundamental laws of influence. Because ultimately in sales, we're looking to influence people. This is one of the most foundational principles of it is the law of reciprocity. So I highly recommend using it. And then also it gives you a reason to make sure they're going to show up too, right? Is somebody going to really no-show somebody and not let them know when you're being so kind as to like ask them if you can get them a cup of coffee? Is somebody really going to ghost you on that? I mean, if so, that's a pretty crappy person. But it really helps and it gives you a reason to follow up and a reason to confirm too, so that you're not being annoying. And then my last one that I added to this, because Colton's list was 5, I say always at all times, have a second property that you can go and see. So whether that be a go show, whether that be an open house, whether it be you're going to just get a coffee in a particular neighborhood, always know of a house that is on vacant go direct that you could potentially go show somebody to. Because if you happen to get at the coffee shop and you happen to get in a conversation with somebody about you being a realtor, what an amazing way to convert other than being like, well, hey, I actually know this property that we can go look at right now. It's 2 blocks away. Do you want to go see it? And if you're an open house, how do you guarantee to have a second appointment with somebody? Hey, this one's not a good fit for you. Well, I don't mind doing this, but I get off at 4. I can go meet you at this other property at 4:15 and we can walk through that one separately as well. So always, always, always have a property that you know that you can go see quickly, and that's vacant go direct. So what do we actually get paid to do here? What do you guys think?
I think the expert in the real estate industry, very knowledgeable, and of course negotiate.
Negotiate. So Ethan, he stole yours.
No, I piggybacked off them because I know we spoke at the same time.
but yeah, so negotiate. Okay, what else?
Educate.
Educate. Awesome. What else?
Help people buy real estate and create generational wealth through real estate.
Exactly. Help buy real estate, help them create generational wealth. What else?
Have contacts in the industry for building, fixing, and just basically anything. Just have a knowledge of people.
Yeah, I love that one. Being a connector, being that connector that can, solve real estate problems. Love it.
Being the resource.
Being the resource, exactly. You don't always have to be the source, right, Cassie? You can be the resource. A lot of times it's better to be the resource. So one thing that I want to kind of point out that from all those answers, I didn't have one answer. All those answers were correct. But one thing I want to point out that all those answers had in common is conversion, right? Our job is to convert. We don't get paid when we take the lead. We don't get paid when we take the lead. We get paid when we convert. And so it doesn't help us to go super, super wide unless we go super deep with every single person we have the opportunity with, right? And so we have to go deep along with going wide. And you guys might have heard me make the joke before. This isn't Pokemon. The goal isn't to collect them all. The goal is to have a few buyers or a few clients that really trust you are going to convert. So now let's talk about providing more value as a buyer's agent, right? Because if the goal is to convert, we only get paid at the conversion. And so all those things you guys mentioned are correct. So the core question here is, how do we find who is going to sell us the home that you love? That is the core question, right? Like all the things you guys just mentioned, being a connector, negotiating, all those things. At the core of it is, how do we find who's going to sell us the home that you love? And what I'm hoping to impress upon you today is that there's more than one way. But what's the one way that we all know of and that even buyers can do for themselves? What's the one way we all know of?
Online,
right? Every single person can go on their phone. We all have this little thing in our hand, in our pocket at all times. At any time, we can go on Redfin or Zillow and look at it at homes for sale. And we can call the listing agent or put in a request on Zillow or put in a request on Redfin. And we can go see that home or go see it at an open house that weekend, right? So would we agree that there's very little value in search and show? There's very little value there. Now, guys, I'm an agent. I know most of the homes you're going to show people are from search and show, and that's okay. I'm not saying don't do search and show. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is we have to be more than that. We have to make the effort and we have to provide more value than only search and show, because search and show is now a commodity. Does anybody know how commodities are priced?
The same as every other commodity?
Yes, as the other commodities, yes. But the business of commodities is always a race to the bottom. Lowest price wins in the commodity business. And so if we're presenting our service as a commodity of only search and show, which we can all do on this, then we're going to all make the least amount of commission. And if we don't communicate our value to our buyers, then this is all they're going to think we do. So I'm going to go over some methods of other stuff we can do now. This one first is Instagram geotargeting. Has anybody ever used Instagram geotargeting before? I've been doing it a bunch lately for our event coming up in April. It's super, super easy, guys. Super, super easy and incredibly inexpensive as well. Social media ads are incredibly inexpensive. And so this is Jason Cassidy. He's with Real Broker. He's a great marketer. He's down in San Diego. He does a lot of really great stuff, and he has some really good trainings on Real Workplace, in fact. So I want to play for you guys this video that he made, and then he used it for geotargeting in his area.
And seeing this message, it's on purpose. I have a buyer. Their names are Sean and Amanda, and they're looking for a detached home in the North County coastal area, up to $18 million. They're pre-approved and just finishing up the process of selling their place in downtown. They're looking to move in the next 30 to 60 days. We've seen everything on the market, and we just haven't found anything that works. So if this sounds like a match for you, please reach out to me and let me know and see if we can put together something awesome.
If you were Jason's client and you happen to see that video that he had made about you, would you think Jason was doing an awesome job for you? Do you think he's going above and beyond? Do you think he's representing himself as a commodity? No, he's not a commodity. Jason won't be involved in the race to the bottom, right? Because he's doing advanced marketing strategies. And if you guys don't feel comfortable on video, you don't have to do this in video form. You could do it as a picture, and you could bullet point what your buyers are looking for. And then you could give more information in the description too. And in order to geo-target that on Instagram, all you have to do is click this little boost post. You pick the area you want it to go to. You say the age demographic you want it to be shown to, and you click boost. It's super, super easy. It takes like 30 seconds. And then you can send your clients this and say like, hey, I know there's nothing on the market that's really fitting your criteria. I just created a little Instagram post about your search to help shake out some off-market opportunities for us. A lot of us are in low inventory areas. San Jose right now is on average selling in their absorption rate is 7.7 weeks right now. It means homes are going off the market the same rate as they were in 2021 in San Jose right now. Other markets aren't as hot as San Jose's, but that's what we're dealing with. So these are the type of things we need to do to actually find somebody. Yeah, San Jose is insane right now. Exactly, Cassie. You can also do Instagram ads only. Like you don't have to post it on your profile. There's a way to post. If you go into Meta, you can post it just only as an ad too. It's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's a great idea. I'm gonna start doing it just for marketing purposes. If you guys don't want to do it, give me your buyers. I'll do it. I'll post it for you. I'll make the video. All right, number 2, obvious way. What is something that buyers can't do on their own without us is reach out to other agents. They don't have relationships with all these different agents. Create your agent network. Ask them about what they know about any pocket listings or conditional buyers, and message them all each time you have a buyer. And then, guys, your buyers don't know you're doing this unless you tell them. Proof over promise. When you do this, take a screenshot of it, send it to your clients, say, hey, I know we're having trouble finding homes on the market that are a good fit for you. So I'm going to my Rolodex to help find some properties to unlock some more inventory for us. Now, again, are you presenting yourself as a commodity, or are you going above beyond? Is this a premium service? And if you don't have agent relationships yet, start attending network events through your local association and start going on broker tours. If you guys aren't going on broker tours yet, at least once a month, you definitely need to start. It's not the most important part of your business, but it is important to start building some camaraderie with your other agents in your community. Because if you do, then they'll start preferring to work with you over other agents. And if there's 2 offers that are comparable, they might give you insider information on how you can close that deal. So if you're not going on broker tour, definitely start doing it at least once per month. Next is I have a buyer letters. So guys, as part of the team, you guys have the opportunity to take advantage of this, that we'll pay for the letters for you. We will pay for the direct mail for you. And you just need these 5 criteria to be met: pre-approved, buyer rep agreement, knows the location, ready to move forward, and is realistic about their price and location. If they meet that 5 criteria, we will send a mailer on your behalf. And we use this company called Celebrity Agent. They write these really cool letters that are very custom to your clients. And we get calls back from sellers like, hey, I'm not selling, but I'll definitely let you know if I meet anybody. Like, your guys' letter was so awesome. Like, oh, definitely hope you guys get a move to the neighborhood. We've loved it here. We get callbacks like that all the time for these type of letters. So if you guys can see the text there, definitely read through and see what it says, because they're really, really good. Cassie just invited you guys to a networking event with local contractors. Great one to go make some contractor connections as well. It's one of the best referral sources you can get is a contractor for sure. All right. Also, what buyers don't have access to themselves is they don't have a way to search through transactions that just fell through on the market. They don't have a way to look at listings that just came back on the market. And they also don't really have an easy way to look up listings that expired or canceled. And if you have somebody that you know that wants to buy, instead of going to collect more leads, you have somebody who wants to buy right now. Instead of getting more leads, go get that person to convert so you can actually get paid. Go find properties that have expired. Guys, between October of 2023 and January of 2024, a lot of houses didn't sell. There's a lot of expired listings in that period. And the reason was because interest rates were about 8%, and it was a slow time, right? Not a lot of houses were selling. Not very many people did transactions in those 3 months. So there's a lot of expired listings from those 3 months that we can go call on. Or you can go find things older than that as well. Go look through those and see if there's any expired listings that might fit your client's criteria. And then you have the opportunity to dual in that. Then now you're not only representing the buyer, or representing the seller too. Again, is this a commodity type service, or is this a premium service? And then make sure you're communicating to your clients that you're doing this. This is a new scripting concept that I hadn't heard before, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So I'm very familiar with circle prospecting. Anybody know what circle prospecting is? They can explain it for us. Lonnie, what's circle prospecting?
Once you have success with the buyer or seller in a specific area, then you knock the 5 doors to the right, 5 doors to the left, the 5 doors behind it, and the 5 doors in front of that house, and explain the success that you had at that house. And so we're kind of herd creatures. And so if you explain to people, this is what happened in your neighborhood, they want to be informed. We sold the house. We had 13 offers. We sold above asking. If you'd be interested in learning more of our process and what makes us different, right? You market yourself based off of what's already happened in their neighborhood. And it kind of drums up interest. If they were thinking about possibly selling, then you're the one that they'll go with because you've already had success in that area.
Exactly right. So Lonnie explained it in the door knocking methods. You go 5, 5, 5, and 5. And so this is just the calling version, right? So circle prospecting through calling. And so the methodology he explained was when you're having success in a neighborhood. Another way you can do it though is anytime that there's something that's conversation worthy. So there's just like a listing that's like a abnormally high listing for the neighborhood, or a very remodeled property, or a complete fixer upper. Like it's something that everybody, all the neighbors want to talk about, right? And so this is actually using the same methodology, but just when you just have a buyer and calling around and asking if they know the inventory. Now, what I thought was interesting about this particular script is he doesn't recommend you going and making these calls for yourself. He says, hey, Shania, you and Marissa should go pair up and make these calls on each other's behalf, because nobody wants to shoot the messenger, right? People are always a lot nicer to the person who's the messenger. So what the script would look like if, like, Will and I were doing this together is Will might say, hey, hi, this is Will calling from Kyle Chernetsky's office at Real here in San Jose. Kyle asked me to give you a quick call because we have a client that has 2 children in the Cupertino School District that needs to buy a home in the next 4 months. We promise our clients that we try and call every homeowner in the neighborhood to see if anyone knew anybody thinking about selling or just even renting their home. Would it be okay if I just email or text you personal contact information? That way, if you hear of anything, you could please let us know, as it would really help our client's family. Would you guys be offended to receive this call? I wouldn't be offended if I got this call. It would look like to me somebody who's trying really hard to help out their clients. And so if you pair up together, people won't be able to shoot the messenger. Again, a premium service. So we're going to have a new buyer presentation book here in the near future. Daniel actually got one at the event. Congratulations, Daniel. He's been crushing it already with it as well. So this is one of the pages. I just redesigned the way it was laid out. But basically it lays out like what the average agent does, what the top 5% does, and what the top 1% does. And so what we want this to become is our talk track of our approach for helping buyers. We are not the search and show agents. We go through all these methods to help them find the home that they're going to love. So I showed you the agent network research. We can do deal chain strategy. We look for conditional buyers. Conditional buyers are people who would sell if they find the home that they could buy. So we can get in contract on those. Investor groups, those of you that are investment partners, every single person, every single lead and contact that you get is a potential seller as well. And you can say like, hey, I have a buyer who's looking in this neighborhood. By any chance, would you ever consider selling it? Is there a price that you would sell it at? If they're truly an investor, there's a price that they would consider. It might not be the right price, but you are at least are making the effort, right? Because this is all about showing the value to your buyer clients. I said in the very beginning, chances are 99% of the time, we're still going to rely on search and show. But if we don't make the effort, then we're a commodity. So we have to make the effort, and then we have to tell our clients that we're doing it. Geo-targeted ads I showed you. Ask your transaction specialist. TCs know a ton about what's going on in transactions. They might know about what's going to fall out soon. They know what's coming to market soon. You can go to door to door. We did direct mail. You can call people on prospecting. Cassie's going to meet with contractors. Contractors know when properties are coming to the market, guys. The painter, he goes and paints a house before it comes to the market. He knows what houses are coming to the market. Painters are full of seller leads. Pre-market is a coming soon, or people who are going to be listing soon. For sale by owner. And then expireds and cancels got to become part of what you're doing. It's so simple. And those are huge listing opportunities, huge listing opportunities. And then it's not like, hey, I'm calling like every other agent who's just trying to get you a listing from you. I actually have a buyer who wants to come see it. Can I bring my buyer over to come see it? So the question remains, how do we find who's going to sell us the home that you love, right? That's what we need to ask our clients. So now we have what Sharon calls the seller universe. So those of you that role played the listing presentation one, you know, they hit the buyer universe. And so he created the inverse now is the seller universe. And so we have people we know, people we don't know, active sellers and passive sellers. And so the talk track is most buyers believe that they can only buy a home that has a sign in the yard, but there's a much bigger opportunity to leave no stone unturned. Let me show you, right? Because we're going to do an example now. Let's just do the group as a whole. I won't call anybody else. I won't call anybody else separately. So who are active sellers that are people we know?
Your own listings or your team's listings.
Yep. Your own
Family and friends.
listings, family and friends. There we go. Family, friends, like neighbors, right? So neighbors who might be selling that you actually know them personally. They're not your listing in particular, but you know them. So those are people that you know that are active sellers. What about people we know that are passive sellers? I just said one a couple minutes ago.
Like past clients that you with years ago.
Past clients who might be thinking about moving in the future. Yeah.
People that you know that own homes, maybe.
Yeah, that's a loose one, but yeah, exactly. What about the investors? I would call every single investment partner lead you've ever gotten a people we know passive seller. Because again, at what price would you consider selling the home? If they're truly an investor, there is a price they would consider. They're not active sellers, they're passive sellers. Other people might be like people that you know that are buyers that you have, they need to sell before they can buy. But they're looking now, they're starting to look, or they're people that might be selling, in 6 months. So these are passive sellers we know. And then we have passive sellers that we don't know. Who would those be?
So that's like the circle prospecting or the I have a buyer letter.
Exactly. Circle prospecting, I have a buyer. People that we don't know that may think about selling, but aren't active to the point that they're on the market, right? And then what about active sellers, people we don't know?
MLS, Zillow.
MLS. Yeah,
Online.
so that's where most agents live, right? And so what you're trying to communicate to your clients is that we have the whole seller universe as agents. Most agents only live in the people we know active sellers box, but we have the entire seller universe. And there's a much bigger opportunity to leave no stone unturned. Right? So it's just communicating that value to them. Okay, next way that we need to communicate our value is really by understanding pricing. So being more intelligent about how the market works. So first we need to frame this conversation in order to frame something that lets people know that that's what we're going to talk about so that we don't talk about anything else. And the framing for this looks like this. Let's walk through what's going on in the market and how pricing works. So Vicky, quick question. How do you keep track of the real estate market? Right? So ask them, engage them in this conversation, have them tell you, and then perfect. You have a conversation about it, say, perfect. Well, pricing is fairly predictable if you know the right questions to ask. Pricing is just understanding how the market works the way it does, how the market works the way it does. Are you familiar with market absorption rate? Other described as months of supply. Does anybody here know what month of supply is?
Yeah, just how many months it'll take for all the inventory to go away.
Yeah. Exactly. So if there's no new homes listed, how many months it would take for all the inventory to be sold? And so that's based on the average demand of the market. So that is how pricing is done. And so if you look at this is the weeks of supply currently in San Jose, California. And I alluded to this earlier. So if you see here on February 18th, there's only 7.7 weeks of supply currently available in San Jose, California. This is less than the 2021 numbers, slightly less than 2021 right now. So that means there's less inventory, there's more demand and less inventory in San Jose than there was in 2021, which is considered one of the hottest real estate markets of all time.
Yeah, they're not lasting long either. They're only on the market for like 8 days max. They host one open house and then they're pending already.
And so how this works is if there's a greater than 6 months supply, that means it's a buyer's market. That means prices are likely going down. If there's a 5 to 6 month supply, it means it's balanced. Things are going to stay pretty even. And if there's less than 5 months, like to the point where there's only 7 weeks, it's a seller's market. and you should be prepared for multiple offers. And so if you guys want to see what your individual counties are, go to this link at the bottom, redfin.com/news/data center. This is an excellent resource for pulling data. I love this site. I use it all the time to keep track. This is how I can be in so many markets at one time and understand what's going on. It's because I look at this all the time. And so at a glance, I can tell you what kind of market every single county is in, and then have an intelligent conversation around it just by this one graph. So I just gave away my secret. But use this, guys, and then take screenshots of it and show your clients, because a commodity service does search and show and just asks what you want to offer. A premium service helps you understand what's going on in the market and how pricing works, right? And we need to be giving more value to our clients. And then beyond that, we all learned when we did our listing presentation practices, we learned how to explain how listing prices work, right? And so we also need to describe this to our buyers. And so our buyer, then we can start having conversations with our buyers about what type of listing strategy that those sellers are using. And so you explain it as, hey, there are 3 different pricing strategies that sellers use. Are you familiar with what they are? Ethan, what are the 3 strategies?
Aspirational, event, and invitation.
Exactly. So educate your buyers on this. And then when you start looking at properties with them, ask them, say, hey, which strategy do you think that seller was using? And when you're educating them on these type of things, you're not being a commodity, you're being an educator, somebody who can actually convert and somebody who's providing value. So there's aspirational, pricing above the comparable market sales. There's perceived market value, which is going off the comps. It's not fair market value, remember, it's perceived market value. And then last is invitational price, pricing it low, letting the buyers bid it up. So tell your clients about this and then start asking them what strategy you think they're using. And if you get really, really good at using this, you can use them in your listing pitches and your buyer consults, and they'll be really, really effective. All right, now let's talk buyer rep agreements, our third way that we're going to adapt to all these changes in the market. So there's 2 moral questions. I added one. Sharon's is next, but I had added a moral question and this was something that came up when somebody asked me. My first moral question is this buyer rep agreement for you or for them? Ask yourself. Both. That's fair. Both is fair.
Both, yeah.
Definitely for you.
I think both is fair, but if you're only getting this buyer rep agreement for you, then you're being a taker, not a giver. So if that is your mindset is, hey, I need this buyer rep agreement for me, then that means you're probably not providing enough value to deserve to get that buyer rep agreement. But if you truly believe that you are doing a service to them, that you are helping them that you're going to provide a great service to them, if you truly believe that person is going to be doing good by getting to work with you, that you are going to go above and beyond for them, then it's for both of you. And so that's a question you kind of ask yourself. And if you can't come to terms with it being for them as well, then you need to improve your skills, or maybe this isn't right for you. If you don't have confidence in yourself to provide that type of value, 2 of those things have to happen. So once you've answered that one, now you ask them the moral question. So the moral question is, I assume if I introduce you to a property that you like, you have no problem working with me to buy it. So you phrase it as a question at the end, you land on a high note. And after you've asked this question and they say yes, now you have permission to ask for the contract. Now you have permission to ask for that buyer rep agreement. And then if you're a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more of a high D, and you can be a little bit more forward with people, I would recommend using the second script is even better. The second script adds that exclusively element. And so I work with all my clients exclusively. I'm assuming if we work together to find you a house that you like at the price you like and the terms you like, then you also have no problem working with me exclusively to buy the home you want. Do you think if you just showed somebody all that value that you're going to provide for them and they agreed that it was a tremendous amount of value and you asked this question, do you think they're going to disagree with this? They're probably not in conversation with you to begin with if they're going to answer no to this, right? Like they probably already hung up on you. They probably already left the go show. They probably weren't communicating a lot back. Daniel, you want to tell us your experience with using this line so far? Because I know you've had some success already with it.
Yeah, the first one right there. But instead of saying working with me to buy it, I put buy it right. So I say, I assume if I introduce you to a property that you like, you have no problem working with me to buy it, right?
Yeah.
And then I say yes every single time.
Why would they say no?
Exactly.
If somebody
Yeah,
asked
so
this question, would you ever say no? I wouldn't.
I just don't ask this question until I get them to the 5-star prospect. Well, actually, all the way through 4-star prospect.
This is how they become 5-star, right?
Yeah.
This is how you convert them from a 4-star to a 5-star.
Because if they're a 4-star, they're going to say yes. But if they're a 1-star, you're not going to be able to get this through you know what I mean? You got to go through all the steps.
There's no way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the question. And so I said before, the way you get somebody from 1-star to 2-star, from 2-star to 3-star is asking good questions, right? So this is your good question to go from number 4 to number 5. And then after they say yes, you say, awesome, let's make this relationship official then. I will send you the buyer rep agreement so we can start working together.
Exactly. And I don't use the word contract. I just say agreement, or I say I'll just send over the paperwork. It's on DocuSign. The subject header will say DocuSign, and then you just sign it whenever you know, in the next couple of days, and I'll check up on you.
I love that verbiage, using agreement rather than contract.
And it expires. So the link expires in like 2 days. So if your buyer doesn't sign it in 2 days, you got to have TC send it again.
Good to know. I'll look into that. I'll stop that. Guys, Daniel's already signed 2 buyer rep agreements in the last 2 weeks from using this from the conference. He's signed 2 of them in 2 weeks. How many did you sign before that, Daniel?
None.
None, right? So this one strategy has changed his business. Would you agree, Daniel?
Yeah, because now I have a plan and I have something that I can go for, you know. So if I can get them to 5 or 4-star prospect, then the easiest part is going from 4 to 5.
That's amazing. Daniel, I got to compliment you, man. Like, I think your speed to implementation on this is freaking amazing. Speed to implementation, guys. And that's adaption right there. That's adapting to changes in the market, hearing something that you know is going to work and putting it to practice right away. Like, that's what's ultimately going to make you successful, is putting things to work right away that you know are going to work. So really great job doing that, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions from today?
If I could just make a comment, use those sorting questions the best. And they keep talking. You know, even if you have, you know, somebody that doesn't like to talk, they will start talking.
It works for all personality types, right? Like your high D, quick answer. Your C, it's still analytical. They'll give you the answer and they'll probably expand upon it. The sorting questions are so good. That was like my favorite part from the thing too, Daniel. I've been using it in my recruitment calls as well. I say, like, do you track transactions or sales volume? And I start asking questions about that then.
I have a question actually. So with the buyer rep agreement, I like Daniel's verbiage on that, just kind of sending it out. Would you just do an assumptive close on the rate as well, or would you kind of talk about that before you send it to them in terms of like your commission rate?
I'd personally send it assumptive, but
Okay.
that's under conversation as well. Right now there hasn't been changes from the buyer compensation, so that's why I don't think it requires a whole lot of conversation at this point. But it's something you definitely should be prepared for in the future, because it will become something to work on. That's for sure.
Here's the question. So if there is a commission from the listing agent, can you still ask your buyer for a commission or no?
Yeah. So like, let's say you have a buyer rep agreement that's 2.5%, and the property that you go in contract on is 2%. Technically, your buyer owes you that 0.5% still. And that's what the buyer rep agreement states. It states that they're going to pay you that commission if it's not provided by the seller. And then, so what I actually recommend when you're doing that is, including, like Jayesh said, that page, there's a page already that exists that you can say to increase your commission. Diego uses it all the time because he does a lot of mobile homes. So he'll go do like a 200K mobile home, but be like, no, but I'm getting 3.5% as the buyer's agent. And he'll send that through with his contract. Or he'll send it as a flat fee, like, no, I need to get paid 10 grand if these sellers want to sell their house, sell their property to my buyers.
Is that like in the type form?
You'd have to just put it like as other notes type of thing.
Other notes.
But Diego uses it, and I see it. I've never seen it not work for Diego. Everybody always says yes, because people are, at the end of the day, people are willing to pay the sellers are willing to pay the commission, because if you're bringing the actual buyer, right, like to get the deal closed, they're willing to pay it. That's why they list it with a listing agent to begin with. If they didn't believe in it, they would have done for sale by owner. So don't be afraid to negotiate your value there. I think if you start going, like, if they're offering 2.5% and you start asking for 3.5%, you might get some pushback there. because they might feel like they're already giving a fair one, but it doesn't mean that you should never ask.